That's way out of the realm of what a normal response is to a situation
Correct.
like that. And so then he shoved pills down my throat, and that was scary too, because you just threatened to rape me, and now you've put sleeping pills in my mouth.
What's up, my people? It's your favorite light M Boogie in this thing. Welcome to another amazing episode of the Can't Be Broken podcast, where we are shining light on the darkness that is domestic violence and abuse. If you've never been here before, welcome to season 2. Pew, 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 pew. We got 3 simple goals: to educate, empower, and encourage. We are here to educate anyone who has never been in abusive relationships, don't understand how people get there, why they stay. We gonna find out. We are here to empower all of our survivors to stand up and share your story without shame, fear, guilt, or judgment, because you are strong, you are powerful, and your voice deserves to be heard. And to anyone who is currently suffering in silence, listen, you're not alone. You're not crazy. Abuse is not normal. Your feelings are valid. And despite how it may look and feel in this very moment, we encourage you to safely seek support. So come on with me, because we're about to hop up in this thing so we can rise above these insecurities, release the burdens of shame and guilt, and revive our God-given power, purpose, and passion. The Confidence Way, because we about to light it up. Y'all, listen, 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 Linda, listen. We got another amazing, beautiful, fantastical guest on this show. An
Hello.
awesome rainbow light. The world knows her as Bella. And I can't just say Bella, because in my mind, Rihanna echoes, so it's Ella, Ella, A. Bella,
Yeah.
Ella, Ella, A. Pew, 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 pew.
I actually had a teacher who would refer to me that way.
Really?
Yeah,
It just flows. Like, I
it
love it.
does.
You're the second Bella that I've talked to. I talked to a Bella last year, and I just can't. Rihanna has ingrained in my brain, henceforth and forevermore, that any Bella I meet is gonna be a Bella, Ella, Ella, A. And that's just what it is. And I love it. Girl, how are you doing?
I'm doing good.
Yes, you look good.
Thank
You
you.
look so good. You look so good. Woo! Well, we about to go ahead, y'all. I'm gonna say it like this. I don't know. I don't know what we're diving into. I don't know if it's the shallow end with the rope that transfers into deep end, or if we going straight deep end. So please make sure you have your scuba gear, your goggles, your snorkeling equipment. You might need a spear, because we don't know what's down here as we dive off in this conversation. But here we go. Bella, as I usually ask most people who come on the show, because it wasn't the case in my life, but it could be in yours. As you were growing up when you were younger, do you remember seeing, witnessing, or did you yourself experience any type of abuse in your house, at church, at school, or anything like that?
There was some like emotional abuse in my household. There was like a lot of like guilting, some like there was some gaslighting, some other stuff. Like there's like I was raised to be like a people pleaser by my mother. So,
So what did that
yeah.
look like?
Um, well, she often taught me that all eyes were on me, and
Mhm.
so therefore I had to constantly be at my best. And I'm not trying to like talk bad about her or anything, but she when I was a kid, I when I was growing up, she would often like if I said no to something, there would be like some back and forth and some backlash and whatnot. So I kind of learned to just say yes and keep the peace and, kind of like work with her on those things. So
Yeah. What was it that made you feel that, not that question, not being a people pleaser, but why was she saying that all eyes are on you?
I think it was how she felt about when we go into like different environments and restaurants and things. I think she
Hmm.
felt that people were looking at us even if they weren't. And so she wanted to create a good image for those people to see.
Do you think that has something to do with her own upbringing?
It might. Honestly, I don't know. My grandparents, I lived with them growing up actually, and they were amazing people. So
Hmm. I wonder where that came from. That's
might
interesting.
just be her own worries.
Yeah, it could be a lot of internal conversations, self-doubt. Maybe was your dad around?
I'm adopted actually, so I don't, when she adopted me, she's a single mother, so
Mhm.
there's no father involved.
I wonder why she felt like all eyes were on her. Hmm. Oh,
She
that's
was the
interesting.
youngest, I believe, so I wonder if
Okay.
that might have something to do with it.
That's very interesting. But how did that make you feel? Did you feel like it was a lot of pressure to, I know you said to be a people pleaser. Do you feel like it was a lot of pressure to perform every time you stepped out in public, or did you kind of get used to it? Like, what was that like?
I felt a lot of pressure. It actually caused me to act out a lot as a kid because I was a gifted kid. So there were high expectations for me, like good grades and being, well behaved in public and
Mhm.
whatnot. So there was always like an expectation for me to keep it contained and keep it together. And so I would end up later in life, lashing out and whatnot because I felt very like stuck and repressed.
I'm about to turn off the interview hat and I'm going to turn on the mom hat because I'm really curious. When you say that she was like you felt like you couldn't almost it sounds like you couldn't be yourself, but you had to be a version of yourself that you felt like your mom approved of. Give me an example of that. And I'm asking this because I love doing these interviews because not only do we have a good conversation about domestic violence and what's not being said, but I'm learning so much because I have three kids of my own and they're really young. And I want to make sure that I'm not over training them to
Yeah.
be a certain way because of my fears of them being abusive or anything like just
Hmm.
or taking my path and having low insecurities and low self-esteem and all that stuff. What was it, if you can think back to like any example of you feeling like I started lashing out because I had to act like this?
I can think of one right off the bat, actually. So back when I was in elementary school, I was in a gifted kids class, and I was struggling to keep up with it because despite the fact that I was gifted, I absorbed things a little slower. It took me
Hmm.
time to process and really understand the material that I was working with, while the classes moved really fast.
Okay.
And so I ended up getting removed from that class because I could not keep up with it. And they told me you won't be able to go back up to that level. And I was okay with that. I was okay with being brought down a level so that I could get the help that I needed.
Hmm.
However, my mom told me that I did not have computer privileges until I got back there, like until I got back into that like gifted class. And I kept trying to tell her I couldn't, but she didn't listen. So I lost my computer privileges for the rest of that school year.
Mm. Because she really believed that you could and you belong there.
Yeah.
Were you in that program like through testing and they were like, oh, we should put her in this class? Or was it kind of just how you were going through elementary school?
I believe it was through testing.
Okay. Interesting. I wonder if no, I haven't done that. They're quite young. Anyways, I just wanted to find out because I need to make sure I'm doing everything I can to be as best of a mom as I can to these three and raise them to be good, amazing little human beings. So, but that is something like I feel like a lot of times parents over discipline because of either their experience or what they think they're trying to protect you from.
Yeah.
In my case, my mom was a great mom. She was a great mom. But she grew up in an era where her generation was kind of like the very first women accepted into society as roles with having their own real jobs. And so she went to school for computer science and she graduated college with like she graduated high school with high honors. She graduated college with high honors
Oh,
and
wow.
she got a good job at it was Bell South at the time, AT&T, but Bell South. And she was doing so good. And I can remember her, like, she had expectations, and I felt like I could achieve them, the grade wise. I wasn't going to be valedictorian like her. I probably could have if I don't know. There's some really, really smart girls at our school. Anyways, stay focused. So, but she would often, I didn't feel free enough to be the silly version of myself around her. And so at school, I would be one way, and at home, I would be totally different.
I can
at
relate to that.
you know,
Hmm.
and that's
Yeah.
something that I want to speak to students about now, like being losing sight of your authentic self, trying to perform for your parents. And it's a hard thing because, like you said, there, if you say no, certain parents grow up in a generation where, how dare you tell me no? Because the answer is because I said so. Don't ask me why. The answer is because I said so, which is
Yeah.
another thing that I'm trying to break from our generation to my kids. I'm like, if you're asking me why, I want to, I want to you to continue to have the inquisitive nature, even as annoying as it is. If you keep asking me why, I still want to be able to give you an answer and not just get so frustrated that I'm like, because I said so. Because that's not
Yeah.
an answer. That's just, you know. So I appreciate that insight into your world. That's a little off topic, but still somewhat off topic because you said as you were raised, it's what caused you to start lashing out or acting out later in life. And I don't know if that's the direction we're going, as far as that could have led you into the relationship or relationships that weren't as healthy. But either way, it's important that we do know, as children, young adults, as parents, or people who are going to soon be parents, just because you're raised a certain way doesn't mean that that is the way.
Yeah.
And I think it's important for us to encourage our kids to have a voice respectfully, because when we don't have, this is what happens, is what I'm seeing. You don't have a space in my home to speak up or talk back. But then when you get out in the world, I expect you to be confident enough to talk to people you don't know.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's kind of something that like happened to me as well, was the I couldn't speak out at home, so I was very nervous about interacting with other people. Like we're talking cashiers, ordering my own food. Like I couldn't do it for the longest time because I was so like nervous.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing that happened, if I can remember my train of thought, was if you treat your child like that at home, and you teach them that they have to be like yes men all the time, what ends up happening is that then later in life they will get bulldozed by other people because they've been taught to do nothing but like accept that that's the way that they're going to be treated.
Yeah. Ooh. And you don't have to accept it, because there's so many people out here who are mistreating and mishandling so many people. And it shouldn't be accepted. Like, we should have the courage and the confidence to be able to say, I don't like the way that this feels or sounds. And we need to, something needs to change, or I need to leave. Like, I need to get
Yeah.
back away from this. I just gave my son permission. He's 5. He'll be 6 this month. I gave him permission the other day. I said, when you feel like mommy is talking to you in a way that's hurtful, it hurts your feelings, or you don't like how it makes you feel as I'm telling you, please tell me, mommy, I didn't like the way you talked to me just then. I knew it was gonna come back and bite me, but at the end of the day, if if I'm talking to you a certain way and then I expect you not to talk to your siblings a certain way or anybody else, like, it doesn't add up, you know? The
Yeah.
same thing with, if I hit you to discipline you and then I tell you you can't hit other people, it doesn't really add up. And that's a
Yeah.
different topic for a different conversation. But I told him that, and he's gotten me like 3 times since, like, mommy. And that, one time I was in the bathroom and he's on the other side of the door. He's like, mommy, I didn't like the way he talked. So I'm just in there rolling my eyes. And then I'm telling myself, I'm like, you gave him permission to do this. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, every time. But he's got me like 3 times since that conversation. I said, did it hurt your feelings? Yes. Okay. Thank you for telling me. I still have to encourage him to continue to tell me. And then I get mad if I give you permission to do that. Like, in my relationship with his father, there was a time where, like, he was just, we're trying to budget, and he was just spending money however he wanted, whenever he wanted. We
Oof.
didn't have enough money coming in. And then he decides, like, in my brain, I was like, I wish I had permission to kind of monitor him, like, in a loving way, not controlling, not anything, but just to be like, I wish I could tell him, hey, maybe you shouldn't, maybe you shouldn't. And then one day he's just up and like, hey, I want you to have all the cards, and just trying to help me hold me accountable. I said, okay. In my brain, I was like, I don't think this is a good idea.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, because I was like, it was his idea, and he led the idea. Sure enough, not even like he was going to the gas station probably to get some alcohol or something to smoke, and I was like, he's like, can I have such and such? I said, well, how much does it cost? He said it was this much. I said, well, I can just give you this much, and then he gets right up in my face, and the energy shifts like
Ooh.
this, and he's like, do you think you have control over me? I gave you permission to do this. I was like, I'm just literally trying to follow your instructions here, sir.
Right?
Hands up, don't shoot. Because I didn't. And then he takes the money and he goes and does whatever he wants to do.
Gosh, that's awful though. That's ridiculous. I mean, I understand being on your side of that, the whole like they'll tell you to do one thing and then when
Hmm.
you do it, you're in trouble. So,
You're in trouble. You will never get it right. You will never get it right. So, back to your story. So, you grow up feeling like a people pleaser, which then later turns around to bite you in the butt. Did
yeah.
you Did you get into any relationships like in middle school or high school that were, considering the age, pretty healthy relationships for what they were? Or were they all kind of just, this was not a good idea type thing?
I had some good relationships with a couple of different people, throughout high school and whatnot. It was there were some really nice people and
Hmm.
I was treated well by those people, so God knows how I ended up on this streak. Um, but uh there was one of my like first like long-term boyfriends or whatever. He was very kind to me. He was like kind of like almost like stereotypical like Disney prince kind of guy.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I did have healthy relationships for a while. It kind of went off the deep end after COVID started.
Really?
Yeah.
Now, did you go to college after high school?
No, we'll get into that for sure.
Uh-oh. She said we gonna get into that for sure. So you had healthy relationships in high school. COVID was right after you graduated?
Yeah, just about. It was my last year of high school
Okay.
when COVID started.
Okay. So that year, did y'all get to finish school out in school, or were you did the first semester and then COVID hit and y'all had to finish the school year at home?
I think it was first semester and then COVID hit and then everything was at home from there.
Okay. How did that feel? Because now you're not having to go out and be a people pleaser because you can't go out and be a people pleaser. What was that like?
It was honestly a little lonely to be honest, because like it was just me, my mom, our cats in the house. And I'm a very active person. I seek
Hmm.
novelty and fun, so I was bored a
Oh
lot.
yeah. Oh yeah. And you weren't in any relationships during the COVID time?
Um, I jumped out of and into a couple relationships during the COVID time.
Why do you think that was?
I know I jumped in and out of relationships because it's mainly like it was a defense mechanism. If I'm in a new relationship, I don't have to feel the pain of the last relationship ending.
Mm, you
So,
don't have to grieve it because you
yeah.
have something else to focus on.
Yeah, that's not a good method, by the way. That does not
It's
work.
not a good method. It never works. It does not. Whoever's listening, don't do it. It just, you have to, here's what I've learned. You have to allow yourself the opportunity to grieve the relationship, to heal the parts of you that you damaged in the relationship and the parts of you that you allowed to be damaged in the relationship. Because if we're being honest, when we're in relationships, usually if you see something that you don't like and you voice your opinion about it and it's met with, okay, acceptance and change, there's not a problem. If it's met with um hostility and you have the confidence to be like, I'm not going to put up with this, you walk away, there's nothing to grieve. It's
Yeah.
when we're in a relationship and we allow ourselves, because we want so much to have that loving feeling from someone else, that we allow them to mishandle us and misuse us. And it's in those moments, the reason I believe that we grieve relationships is because we were in relationships that weren't for us, but we stayed longer than we should have because we allowed the toxicity or the unhealthy traits or the high disrespect or low disrespect or whatever it was. We allowed it to keep going because we kept accepting apologies or we kept making excuses for it, all because we didn't want to let go of the happy loving feeling that we got whenever we had the happy loving feeling times.
Hmm.
Because I can look back over any of my relationships and any didn't quite make it to relationships, and I'm like, it was always evident that how you were treating me wasn't the way I should have been treated all the time. And there were plenty
Yeah.
of times for me to walk away, but we grieve and we hurt because we want something that's not for us, that's
Yeah.
not good for us. And because we keep staying in something that's not good for us, we're exposing ourselves to the trauma, whether it be a huge amount of trauma or a little amount of trauma, it still adds up. So that's just what I've learned.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
and we have to get to a place where we actually truly love ourselves. And if we love ourselves, when we entertain the company of someone else who doesn't align with the self-love that we're able to show ourselves, it's much easier to walk away.
Much. Yeah, definitely.
Much easier. So you got in relationships when you were COVID. How does that work? Because you're in COVID. Like, are y'all just on FaceTime? Like,
No.
how?
Um, we would wear masks and like meet
Okay,
each other places. Like, I would wear a mask and I would go down to like the cemetery to meet people sometimes.
that's
Um,
interesting. But
yeah.
hey, meet me at the cemetery where relationships come to die. That's so
We
interesting.
there
So
just happened to
interesting.
be a few cemeteries around the
Yeah.
area and whatnot.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of my friends and including myself were more like gothic people,
Mhm.
so we definitely enjoyed the scenery and whatnot.
This is gonna sound, it might sound morbid, I don't know. Um but I wasn't, I hope you didn't take offense to that because I'm not judging.
Oh no, I didn't at
I
all.
actually I wish that I had the time to just go to a cemetery like once a month and just sit out there with everyone because I and just it sounds weird, but I just want to talk to the graves and like see if there's any energy that comes from it from a place of the cemetery is the richest places on earth because so many people are dead with so many gifts and talents that they never actually used or had the courage to try. And I'm wondering, like, if I just sit here, like, will anything come to me that's like just a reminder, like, you need to be living your life while you have the opportunity to live your life. And there's so many amazing people that are gone and forgotten because they didn't have a huge impact on the world, whether they were afraid to try to do what they were gifted and talented at, whether someone stopped them from being able to do what they were gifted, all the reasons, because we have centuries of death there. And I'm just like, man, this is a really, it's weird, but to me, it seems like a really interesting place because you just have so many different races, different ages, different things that are happening right there on that ground.
So many untold stories.
So many untold stories. And I just think it would be pretty cool to just go out there and sit there and just make up stories for people. Like, I wonder what Herbert, you sound like you were supposed to have been something. I don't know what it was, Herbert, but gosh dog it, I wish you were here and we could talk about it. So yeah, I'm not judging because I really do believe that, like, there's just, as funny as it sounds to me, there's a lot of it, it's an oxymoron, but I believe there's a lot of life in the cemetery,
Hmm.
a lot of life that was never lived, that didn't have the opportunity to live. And I think it's just a healthy reminder for people like we don't know when our last day is our last day. So
Yeah.
we gotta leave an impact while we're here. Anywho, so you meet up with your boo things during COVID, and when something doesn't work out, you're like, all right, pish posh. Let me find somebody else to redirect this energy so I don't have to sit with the feelings. Been there. I understand. It's like, the feelings suck. They
Oh
suck.
yeah,
They suck. But to anyone who's listening, you got to sit through the suck. You have to sit
you
through the
really do.
suck because if you don't, you're just going to keep jumping in more suck.
Hmm. That
That's
yeah,
all.
it just becomes it snowballs. It just
Yes.
snowballs.
Yes. The snowball of suck is what it
The
is. And you're
snowballs
going
suck.
you're going to get trapped up in it, girl or guy, whoever it is. So you go through those relationships. What happens though when, as you're doing this, you're working, you come back home to your mom and your cats? When do you venture out into, I guess, the part of your story where you say you went from people pleasing to kind of acting out and it comes back to bite you?
Oh, the acting out all took place when I was like in my younger teenage years. So that was
Okay.
before COVID and whatnot. And then as I grew, I kind of got better at, containing everything, and dealing with it in a more healthy manner than just
Mm-hmm.
screaming and swearing and like having these outbursts,
Yes. The crash outs.
the crash outs.
Oh my gosh. It is such a, it's, I mean, and then it's hard because when you're that young, everything is like every emotion is heightened. It's more, it just seems more sensitive because you're going through your own changes. You don't know what's going on. Your hormones don't know what's going on. Your body doesn't know what's, your brain doesn't know what's going on. Then you're trying to deal with everybody else who doesn't know what theirs got's going on. So it's almost accepted, but then it also still has to be taught like this is not the healthiest way to navigate through these moments.
Oh yeah,
Okay. So you're not acting out anymore,
correct. I'm still a
but
people pleaser by this point, though. It's just when I was younger and I was going through puberty and everything, hormones were
hmm
everywhere. I just was more aggressive and I was more, like I was seeing the things that were wrong and the connections between me and my family and my mother, and
mm,
it built up, and it got
yeah,
to a point where I was just kind of angry a lot.
yeah,
So,
that's understandable. There's a lot of teenage anger,
oh yeah,
a lot of
yeah.
teenage anger, and we don't know how to manage and express it. And then when we're growing up in households where it's be seen, not heard, I didn't ask your opinion, I didn't ask you to tell me what you didn't want to do. How am I supposed to expect you to communicate with me in a healthy way when you've never been taught to communicate?
Yeah.
Even now, I have a 4-year-old daughter, and she'll be like, but I don't want, both of them do that, but I don't want to do that. I don't want to go to swimming lessons. And I'm trying to be as intentional as possible to say, I know you don't want to do this right now, and then explain why it's important. So for swimming, but it's important that you learn how to swim so that when you're older, you'll know how to swim, and then it's saving you from all these other things. But giving her the space to say, I don't want to do that, and me not saying, I don't care if you don't want to do it, you're going to do it today.
Hmm.
I don't want them to feel that way. I want them to be able to say, I don't want to do this. And I say, I understand there's a lot of times in life we don't want to do things and we still got to do them. I think that two things can be true. And if we
Hmm.
just give our children the space, not even our children, but our parents, the space to be able to express themselves, because there's a lot of pressure on parents too, and you
Oh
don't
yeah.
think about it until you're older and you realize everything that they sacrifice for you. Like, I didn't realize the sacrifices until I got older, and I'm like, how the heck do you show up to every game and you have a full-time job? How do you do that? I don't know. To this day, I don't. But I think if we can learn that, hey, I'm doing this parent thing for the first time ever in the history of my life, and you're the first child, or you're the first version of this child, like you're the only version of this child, so I've never experienced this with you. If we can be like, if we can just have honest communication. I'm not saying we got to be all friendly buddy buddy, but hey, I don't really know what I'm doing all the time as the parent to
Yeah.
allow the child to give you grace. And then you extending the same courtesy and being the example, like you're not going to always get it right. And trying not to blow up or go off the handle when the baby spills milk, you know? It's
Yeah.
an accident. Accidents happen. But we forget that. Like you remember when you're a kid, and then when you get older, you forget that you what it felt like when you were a kid, and then you're like, oh my gosh, I gotta clean this up. Look what you did. Anyways, there just needs to be safe space and safe conversation for all of this stuff so that we don't have to keep repeating the same crap every generation. Like by this time, the world should have figured out how to communicate with teenagers and vice versa.
Right. Yeah.
We should
You
have
could
it figured
think.
out. Like, I don't
Hmm.
understand, but we don't because we forget what we've been through and then we become parents. We remember what we went through, and some parents are like, well, I had to go through it, so you have to go through it too. Then you have
Yeah.
some parents that's like, well, we're not going to talk about what I went through and pretend like what you're going through is nothing what I went through because I put on this. They're performing too. They're performing
Yeah.
for us too. And it's just like, I have to be perfect so that you can only see this clear side of me. And this is what you have to do as if you're not going to have challenges. And your challenges aren't as big as the world's problems out there. What are you talking about? You're only 15. But it was a big deal to you at the time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think it's good that you're teaching your children to advocate for themselves
I'm
and you're
trying.
even teaching them to ask questions and so that they don't just blindly trust and whatnot. So I think that's really good for them and it'll be good for their development as well as how they communicate with you. You're teaching them
Yeah.
a good way to communicate.
Thank you. I'm really trying. I'm really trying. And it's so exhausting. But I keep telling
Sure.
myself in the end, it's going to be all worth it. But to piggyback off the point of asking questions, what I learned through my experience with, especially with the last relationship I was in, their dad, is that I didn't ask enough questions in the beginning because, like you, being a people pleaser, I was so concerned about stepping on toes or making someone feel uncomfortable about important conversations. And it's like, I understand it's uncomfortable, but I still need to know this information. And had I asked more questions, I would have seen earlier in the relationship his inability to manage his anger. They don't like to be vulnerable and exposed. It's a threat to them, even if you're not directly threatening them.
Yeah.
And all of this could have been avoided because I could have been like, you know what? I don't really like the way you respond. I'm just asking questions. If you getting upset about me
Right.
asking questions, but it didn't matter if I asked enough questions anyways. The signs were there anyways. You know what I'm talking about, Bella?
Yes.
The signs are always there. So talk to us about your signs. Let's go. Let's get into what you experienced. I mean, because now hindsight is 2020, right?
Oh
And you
my
can
God.
see pun, no pun. It's all the same. But you can see now, like, whatever veil that we put on ourselves to allow the buffoonery to continue and us hanging there, like we got to prove something to somebody or what have you. It's just crazy. But what I'm learning is a lot of the stories are the same, but a lot of the stories are so different. And I think it's important for every story to be shared because even though they're so different, somebody else is experiencing it in some kind of way. And if we don't hear what you experience, then we can only look at other people's and say, well, that's not exactly what I'm going through. So it must not be that.
Yeah, no, that's part of why I came on here, was to share my experience in hopes that maybe some other people might see that and be like, I'm experiencing that, and then be able to maybe get away.
Yes. Yes. So how old were you? Because 2020, you just got out of high school. So you were 18, 19,
I was 17 actually.
17 in 2020.
17 in 2021, because when I
Okay.
graduated, it was 2021,
Okay. 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 Oh, so you
when I
were
was
okay.
graduating.
Okay. I got you. So we shut down 2020. I see. And then 2021, we were still shut down. That's right. Because a horrible year. Oh, but we survived. We survived. So you graduate high school. you go to work, you start working, the world shuts down, you're in relationships, you meet up. How do you meet up? This is fascinating because I was with Harpo over here prior to 2020, then I got locked down with him. Did you meet someone during the world shutdown that was an unhealthy, toxic relationship?
Yes. I think I got the timeline wrong, however. So full shutdown started around the end of my 11th grade year. And
Okay.
then when I started 12th grade, I was 17.
Hmm.
Um, and I was 18 actually when I started it because it was the next year because
Yeah.
COVID proceeded over summer and everything.
Yeah. So 2021.
Yes.
Okay. So you graduate in 2020. So you graduate in 2022?
I graduated in
In
2021
21?
still, but
Okay. So you graduate in 21. The world is still shut down. Like, how do you get into a relationship that you're in when the world is shut down?
so I knew people and friends and whatnot, obviously prior to shutdown, and there were people that I
Mhm.
kept in contact with. I had a spinal fusion, so I had been working at McDonald's all up until that point, and then they were horrible there. So when I went and I got my spinal fusion, I ghosted them and I never went back.
Like, why? Well, I'm coming back to y'all. So do you meet the person like this person that we're about to talk about? Do you meet that person while you're working there at McDonald's? Do you meet that person online? Like, what happened?
So I ended up meeting them online after my spinal fusion and
Hmm.
everything. I was actually still like within like the first couple months of healing from it.
Hmm.
And we met on Snapchat. They were just a random ad. Like I didn't
Hmm.
know this person, but they lived not too far away from me. And so we started chatting and making potential plans and whatnot. So, and I was 17 at the time, going on 18 soon.
Hmm.
And it they they started flirting with me. They were 18 going on 19
Okay.
same
Okay.
month. So, they started flirting with me and we flirted back and forth for a couple of weeks until I turned 18. And this is
Hmm.
pre my last year of school. Um, because it was all over the internet for the last year. And we essentially got together. Things moved very fast. We got
Hmm.
together like on my birthday. Like that was
Hmm.
like the minute I was 18.
Yeah, I was like, boom, we in a relationship.
That's kind of what happened. It kind of just escalated very quickly.
Yeah. As they usually do. So if you look back now, and of course the escalation very quickly is a sign, but I mean, and then you're still so young, so it's hard to see that for what it is. And he's not, I mean, he's young, it's not like y'all are crazy ages apart. Y'all are really
Yeah.
right next, like right there, back to back. So did you feel that as you look back now, all of the flirting and stuff, was it more like a love bombing type thing? Or did you feel like what he was doing was kind of grooming you into wanting to be in a relationship with him for future foolishness to happen? Or did you kind of wholeheartedly, as you look back, like, well, it kind of started off naturally and then things kind of shifted as the story goes on?
So I can't speak on whether it was like grooming or not because I don't honestly know, but I do know that he thought it was inappropriate because he told me to tell his brother and his dad if they asked when I was coming over before I turned 18. He told me to tell them I was 18. So
Yeah.
he clearly had some understanding that it wasn't exactly right. And
Yeah.
but the flirting it kind of started off naturally and then it grew and then things later would become what they were.
So how long were y'all dating and doing the healthy COVID visitation type stuff? Like how many? how many months did you have of the good side?
That's a really good question. So we we were dating for a couple of months, I think. Honestly, I think I was dating him for a month, and then my mom made a comment to me about how um I was struggling with doing all the online work and all the online schooling and whatnot. And I had some other stuff happen prior to this relationship that had left me pretty troubled. And my mom was like, well, if you don't like it, you can leave. And you can only say that so many times to your child before they will actually leave. And
Mm.
so I told him at the time, and he came and he picked me up. I took a couple of my items with me and whatnot, and I started to live with him just about a month in.
What did your
Not good.
mom say when you did, like, when you call her bluff?
She obviously was not happy about this arrangement. And she would later go on to backtrack a bit and be like, well, I didn't like mean like for you to actually leave. And I was like, well, mom, when you say that
Right,
so many times, your
right.
kid is going to get to a point where they're like, okay, off I go.
Which goes back to the conversation of healthy parenting and understanding. Like, and I mean, I'm not even knocking your mom because when you get to the age and it's challenging, I don't even know what it's like to have a teenager yet. But even now with toddlers, it's just like, it takes a lot to hold back and be the example of not just saying whatever's on your mind or
Hmm.
saying how you feel in the moment, knowing that it could still hurt the person that you're talking to. So I'm not even like, I'm not mad at your mom. I get it. I get it. And she's up to so much frustration because of the expectations that she has of you, that like, I
Hmm.
know that you can do this. I know you can be better. I know that you can such and such and such. But when we don't know how to communicate, we don't know how to pull pull it out of our kids in a healthy way, you know?
Yeah.
And so we start saying things like that. And then it's just like, well, what you, you didn't expect this. You expected
Yeah.
to be able to say it, but it not actually move me enough to actually move. So
Yeah.
you're dating, you're 18 at this point, and you move in with him, and you're still in high school because you said online classes.
Yeah. This was my
Okay,
last year of
senior.
high school.
So you're still in the middle of high school and you move in with him. He's now 19 and you're 18.
Correct.
Okay. And that's a really tricky situation because when you were going over at 17, he was still 18, right?
Yeah, when I was over at 17, he was still 18. Only for a little bit though, because his birthday is before mine in the same month. So,
Hmm.
what ended up happening was he turned 19 relatively soon. So I was hanging out with him like at least once or twice while he was 19 and I was
Yeah,
still 17.
17. Which is it's just that's so tricky. That's so tricky because once you're 18, it you just don't know what people because it's hard, like you said, it's hard to say whether or not he was grooming you, and just being aware that, okay, technically because I am 18 and you're 17, this is technically illegal. Then now I'm 19 and you're not quite 18. It's just, but then turn 18 2 weeks later and it's just like, oh, okay, so it's
Yeah.
almost like it's hard to say whether or not it was malicious intent behind it, or if it was just, I just don't want to get in trouble with the law
Yeah.
because of like, just because the law says this age and this age. It's
Hmm.
not like you're 17 and he's 23 and we're waiting for you to turn 18. That's,
Yeah.
to me, a
That
different
would have
type
been a
of
different
predator.
story.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So you move in with him. He's not living with his dad and his brother then. He's living by himself.
He is living with his dad and his brother when I moved in. And there was also, I think, some other lady that was just moving out, I believe, that lived with them for a bit. So she was she was like a it was like a roommate situation just
Hmm.
about.
So how was it when, like, all of a sudden you pop up? Because I mean, I imagine it seemed like it was a pretty quick transition, since it's like, all right, well, I'm sick of hearing get out or get with it or get out. So I'm just going to get out and figure out how to get with it later. You pop up there, like, his dad does his dad say anything to him about you? His brother say anything to him about you? Like, moving in?
His dad gave him the okay. His dad was like, "Yeah, she
Okay.
can move in."
Okay.
So I just moved in.
Okay. And so y'all like a month after meeting.
Pretty much, yeah. It was not very long after we had already started meeting and dating and whatnot. So,
Okay. So you move in, and then how does that flow from you going ahead and graduating high school online now because we're still in COVID to like what does that look like? And how does the relationship develop?
well, I'm living with him while I'm completing high school, getting the
Hmm.
rest of high school done.
Hmm.
The flow at first was easy. I was very happy. I was excited. We went out, we got things like coffee and treats and all kinds of things that we just had sitting around. Monster energy drinks, just like the works.
Yeah.
Just kind of like almost celebratory. Uh,
Mm.
and so it was smooth at first. There was like we were happy,
Mhm.
and we didn't have any issues at the time. Um, but we would start to clash. I can't remember about what necessarily it like started on, but because of to put it bluntly, I had been raped prior to this relationship and I had not put that together yet. So he was actually the one to tell me that when I told him about my experiences. And once that bubble got popped, I'll be honest, I was in a bad space and I was not quite myself. I was very depressed.
You're saying that you were depressed once you realized that what happened was actually rape, or you were depressed? Really?
Yeah.
How were you mentally coping with how old were you when that happened?
I was 17 at the time.
So this was right before you meet him.
Yes.
But before you meet him, you didn't realize that it was rape.
No, I didn't because I didn't fully understand how consent worked at the time. And so I thought that I essentially signed myself up for it, and so it was my fault. Anything that happened was my fault. So I did not realize that it was rape until later. And then when he told me that, it was like taking the bubble wrap off of like something very sharp. So
Yeah.
it was like very hard to handle, and I went into a very dark space.
Wow. So when you were experiencing that, your why do you feel like you had signed up for what had happened?
So we discussed certain likes and interests in the bedroom and whatnot, but we did not discuss the parameters of said interest in the bedroom. And so when I signed up for it, I agreed to these things, but I didn't know the extent of which they were going to be done to me.
Hmm. So y'all were talking about it, but you weren't expecting full penetration or anything like that based off the conversations that y'all were having.
Well, I was expecting sex because I had consented and agreed to that. But what I didn't realize was going to happen was saying that I was into more of a kink related scene and whatnot was going to become like my biggest mistake. Um,
Oh,
yeah, I was fresh into that. And I did not know how you discuss that kind of thing. He pretty much just asked me, "Do you like X, Y, and Z?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I didn't realize how aggressive he was going to become with it.
did you ever at any point tell him during the act that this hurt, this is uncomfortable, I don't want to do this, I want to stop?
I I was I think too scared to say the words like stop or whatever, but it was obvious I wasn't enjoying myself. I definitely
Hmm.
screamed. Like it was not good.
Yeah. That's the people pleaser part of you that didn't want to say stop.
Oh yeah, 100%. That is what I went on to later realize that it was the people pleasing and the fear of somebody else's emotions that prevented me from being able to have autonomy in those moments.
And here's the thing that's not talked about nearly enough: the responsibility and the respect from the male. Because you just said, I clearly wasn't enjoying myself. It was very evident that even though I didn't say stop, I was being hurt. If you were to take that to court, the prosecutor would for sure beat down the fact that you didn't verbally say stop.
Yeah.
And it's like, a guy doesn't have to respect how what they're doing is physically hurting the person that they're doing it to.
Yeah, there's it's why I ended up really not doing anything about it because, there was no like
Yeah.
verbal
Yeah.
evidence.
And even if it was, it's not like it was you were recorded saying it. So
It was he said, she said.
yeah. And even if the craziest thing is, even if it was recorded saying, they would go back and say, well, in the very beginning, she didn't have a problem with it. So
Mm-hmm.
it's just, it's so frustrating that so many people, so many boys and so many men can get away with such heinous things simply because just for any reason. Like, it's like they excuse their behavior. I just came across an article today on my newsfeed, and I guess it's because I'm always in these domestic violence chat groups and everything on Facebook. Like, I just see so many things come on my newsfeed. Like, Facebook is just feeding me with all the trauma. Thanks, Facebook. So I see this article though that pops up that happened in my city at Brookwood Hospital, like this Saturday night, I think it was, like this weekend. There's a 24-year-old girl and a 19-year-old boy. I don't know how long they were dating, but they had a baby. Don't know the backstory of what happened. All is speculation, which I hate that part too. Like, everybody gets on social media and they make up these stories and then they push them out there and nobody knows the truth because they're not here to tell a story.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, they're in, she gives birth to the baby. They get moved up to the fifth floor, which is not labor and delivery, but it's post delivery floor. So you're on a floor with all these other, whatever women are there who had just given birth.
Mm-hmm.
And he kills her with a gun.
Oh my God.
And then he kills himself.
Jesus.
And it says that they were found deceased. So I'm like, it's not like nurses are on everybody's door 24/7. They're
Right.
not. They're on a rotation. I come back and check on you at a certain amount of time. But I'm like, you have a gun in the hospital, which is not illegal, which is a problem, but that's not what we're here to talk about, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm saying this because this is horrible what has happened. The speculation is that the baby wasn't his. Do we know? We don't know. We weren't there. But that's just what everybody's feeding the story off of.
Mm-hmm.
And to see the comments, his uncle posts about how beautiful of a person he was, how, and so many people are backing this up, how beautiful of a person was, loving spirit, people loved him, blah, 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 making his money, he's doing his thing. And all he wanted was to be a father, and that was taken from him. Mind you, he has taken her life and his own. And this is a tragedy all the way around. But we're overlooking the responsibility of, hey, young man, this is how you manage your emotions when things don't go your way. We're
Right.
overlooking that completely. Hey, young man, yes, she may have said she wanted to have sex, and then when y'all started, she changed her mind. She has every right to do so, and that does not give you permission to continue your act.
Correct.
But we don't train them to like my child, I'm sitting here beating into him verbally. Like, no means no. Once your sister says stop, whatever you're doing, you stop it.
Stop.
If you're
Yeah.
getting on her nerves and she says stop, you stop. Like, you don't even have to be doing anything crazy, like holding her or making her or sitting on her or anything. No, if she says stop following me, you stop. Like, I need you to stop now and
Hmm.
understand that stop means stop, no means no, don't do it anymore until you get consent. And the reason I'm off on this whole tangent though is because of your situation is so traumatic, and people would be like, but she didn't say no. But she literally screamed, and her body is saying no. And for us to not have the responsibility and the self accountability to say that this is clearly not enjoyable for both of us, I'm going to stop because it's not enjoyable for both of us, is a huge problem.
Yes.
But we don't, society as a whole excuses male behavior way too much, like way too much. I
Completely agree.
I get that you want to defend his character, but at the end of the day, he murdered somebody in a hospital and then he killed himself. And if it was because the baby wasn't his, which I'm not sure how we know this, unless they could have had an argument and she could be like, well, it
Hmm.
ain't yours anyways. And it's still been his, because people say stuff to try to hurt people.
Oh
Or
yeah.
she could have been like, it's not yours anyways. And it could have been his, but maybe she slept with somebody else and she really didn't know. And they needed to do a paternity test. Like, we don't know the story. However, what we do know is I should not see another man coming in here saying, I shouldn't see you say, yes, this is a messed up situation, but I also get it. No, you
Hmm.
shouldn't get it.
Yeah.
You can understand that somebody's angry, but you shouldn't understand that my brain said, take this gun out and shoot her in a hospital bed because
Hmm.
the baby may or may not be mine. And you're 19. You had so much life to live. So many opportunities. You were made a fool. You're not the only person who's been made a fool of.
Yeah.
But for us to excuse on so many levels, and women, I'm not saying women were in there too. Like, you do what you do and you got to suffer the consequences. Like, this should not be the consequence of
That yeah,
me telling you that this baby is not yours. Even if that was even the conversation, nobody knows what the
yeah.
conversation is. Because it sounds like clearly nobody was in there. Family visiting hours weren't happening. No nurses weren't in there. According to the news broadcaster and according to the police report that was disclosed so far, they were found deceased,
Yeah.
which means pow pow. Oh my goodness, I hear gunshots. Let me go.
Yeah.
But we have to, I'm just really harping on this because we have to we should be responsible at some point for making sure the next generation of boys understands that you respect yourself and you respect women all the time.
Yes, 100%.
If a woman disrespects you, it shouldn't be you turning around to put her in her place. It should be you saying, I respect myself enough to walk away and not be disrespected. And vice versa.
Correct.
Vice
Hmm.
versa. If a man is disrespecting you, you as a woman should not get up in his face. I dare you. You wouldn't even put your da da da. Like, don't even. Why are we challenging somebody who weighs more than you, is stronger than you, to do something to you? And then when you do it, you get all shocked and appalled that it did it. Like, that's not
Hmm.
what our conversations are about. Our conversations are, we have so many people and women and men who have experienced abuse, not because they dared somebody to abuse them, but because the person who abused them didn't have self-control and self-respect.
Correct. Yeah.
So I know I'm like just on my soapbox with this, but it's so important because so many conversations I've had, and I've had at least at least two that I fully remember on this show where a grown woman, 43, late 40s, late 30s, has said, she's telling me her story. I'm like, well, you do realize that that was rape, right? And she said, well, I didn't know because I'm like, if you're drunk, I don't care if you say yes, you're not physically cognitive in a space to be able to agree or disagree on anything in your right. You're not in your right mind.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, oh. And the other was like, I didn't know. And it's so important. And you didn't know because that's why I had to ask you, like, did you say anything? You didn't know because one, these conversations aren't had
Mm-hmm.
candidly. Two, you didn't verbally say it at
I
any point.
actually I actually just remembered a detail. There was one time, only one time,
Mm-hmm.
where I told him to slow down and to stop,
Mm-hmm.
and that was met with a no. That I was told no.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, even if you didn't verbally say it, your hands are pushing him back
mm-hmm.
because it hurts. And he continues on.
Mm-hmm.
Will it hold up in court? Probably not.
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately, probably not. But I say that to say to all of the women who haven't been here yet, haven't experienced that yet, that is not consensual. I don't care if you started off with saying, yeah, let's try this. If your body doesn't like it and you're showing it even without saying it, a a real human being should have the decency to not continue to pleasure themselves from your pain in
Yes.
any capacity.
Yeah.
This is so angering.
Oh yeah, I know, trust me. I hear stories like this myself and I get mad as well. I
Mm-hmm.
get mad for the people who have like because I've been in that place. I know what that's like. I get mad for them, because
Mm-hmm.
it truly is aggravating and especially when you put it together
Yes.
what happened,
Yeah.
it's consent can be revoked at any time.
At any time. At any time. And it should be respected.
Definitely.
So you're dating him, you're having these conversations, you share it with him, this happens, and he says, you know, you were raped, right? And now you're in a depressed state.
Yes.
How does he handle you in that state?
It was 50-50. I think this is where the problems started to begin between us because I would express being uncomfortable with something and it was like I just had like an open nerve. I would get very emotional and he didn't respond very well to that. Um and there were you know, I obviously had a lot of growing to do. I don't condone everything that I did back then. I don't condone all of my behaviors back then and whatnot, but I would scream and fight with him and I would be, nasty as well. I wasn't exactly a kind person yet. Um,
Mhm.
so and I mean it was coming from a place of hurt, and having dealt with all of those things. Obviously, that does not excuse the behavior. It's just an explanation for the behavior.
Mhm.
Um, but that's where things slowly started to kind of like get worse for wear between us. Um, and I had severe attachment issues, like anxious attachment, and they when I first started this relationship with him, they were pretty gnarly. And we had constant conversations where we would find that there were disagreements between us or whatever, and we would fight about it. And I genuinely would feel like the relationship might not last because of those disagreements,
Mhm.
um, which eventually led to a point where he ended the relationship, and I went to the psych ward to get help, and this is where my growing really started, and I started to start doing better, like all the self-help stuff, all the research into like good communication skills, all the like attempting to do better, you know? Um, because he ended up, of course, I got out of the psych ward. He ended up texting me. We start talking again, fall back into the same loop, same story. Um,
Hold on a second, Bella. So you're telling him like certain things that you're trying to navigate how to communicate after you've lived a life of don't communicate in the privacy of your own home.
mhm.
Y'all have a lot of disagreements, argue it, unhealthy, it's toxic, blah, 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 blah. He breaks up with you and like, why do you end up in the psych ward?
I first tried to take Tylenol to kill myself, but he got the bottle out of my hand, and unfortunately, he was faster and stronger than me. So, what ended up happening was I ran out into the cold because I couldn't get my hands on any weapon. I was determined to try and off myself. Um,
Is
and
this because like is this the reactional response to him saying we don't need to be together anymore?
yeah, yeah. And so I ran outside and it was snowing, freezing cold outside. And he had already called like the police or whatever emergency line to tell them that there was, an individual who was suffering and trying to kill themselves. And so I ran out into the cold. I was out there for probably like an hour, hour and a half, and then I reflected honestly while I was out there, despite everything. I reflected and I realized this isn't how I want things to go. And so I turned my ass around, freezing cold, because I was only wearing a crop top and shorts. I turned my ass around and I walked back and I went to them and I went to they obviously they put me in like the police car, ambulance or whatever. I can't remember which car it was. Um, and, I asked the officers to tell him that I was sorry and that I didn't want things to go like this and that I came back because I was going to try and fix things, fix myself,
Hmm.
And I don't know if the officer ever told him that or not. I know I did probably tell him later on in like later scenarios. But I ended up in the psych ward I signed off on the hold because if I didn't they would have just put me in there anyways and then they would have put it on my record. Um but I signed myself in and so I stayed there for a couple of days, got therapy, got out, So
What was your plan when you were coming out? So you were only there a couple of days, not even a week?
yeah, it was only 4 days.
Okay, so you're there for 4 days. Your plan for coming out before he initiates conversation with you, did you think like, well, I'll just go back to my mom's house and regroup and get myself together? Because you didn't have anywhere to stay, did you, since you were leaving his dad's house?
Yeah, he dropped everything of mine back off to my mom's place while I was being processed in to be put into the ward.
Okay. So your plan
So
was to go back home.
yeah, so I ended up having my stuff back at home and I ended up going back home. My game plan was honestly, it was, I was gonna come out of that and I was going to work on myself. And my game plan at first was I'm not gonna go back to him because we're not a good fit for each other.
Hmm.
Um, because we clearly have differing opinions, we have differing values,
Yeah.
our problems conflict, and I was
Hmm.
like, so I'm not going to go back to him because it's not good for us, I respect the time that we had with each other, but it's not good for us. And then he texted me and I folded like a lawn chair.
Yep. Yep. That's all it takes. And that's why it's so important. Like, I'm an advocate for no contact because until your brain is back on track, it's not going to take too much to find yourself back into a relationship that you knew is unhealthy, that you knew is toxic, because they still have the strings to manipulate whatever they want to manipulate. So 4 days later, you move back in with your mom, and then the same day you move back home, he texts you.
Yeah, pretty much as soon as I got my hands on my phone, I saw that there were texts sitting in my Instagram, and I texted him back. I think it was like a big paragraph, an
Why didn't
apologetic
he
kind
just
of
text your
paragraph.
phone number? Why did he text you on Instagram?
Um, Honestly, I couldn't tell you. I don't know
Interesting.
why it was Instagram of all places,
Hmm.
but it was like a big apology paragraph, and I believe I sent one back at the time. And then we got to chatting, and he was like, "You don't think that this would ever work?" And I was like, "I mean, give me a chance to work on myself, do a couple things, like get through school and whatnot, and then we'll see." Like I thought maybe there was a chance that things might be able to work out.
But it doesn't go that way.
No. So unfortunately, in the process of working on myself, this we're gonna reach the boiling point where everything really starts, and now he'll have an excuse to continue to do it for the next 4 years. So what ends up happening is he gets jobs out of state, and so I start to panic. I think the relationship's going to end because I can't do distance. Um, and so like how I used to do, I start setting myself up to hop from a one relationship to the next. And in that process, obviously, I was emotionally cheating. And I realized, actually, like a few days before he would find out, I realized that this isn't what I wanted. But by the time I actually went to be honest with him about it, I was unfortunately too late because one of them had one of the people, it was a couple, one of the people had reached out to him, and I realized like it was now or never. I had to come clean. And so I told him what had been going on. And this is where things start to go bad because I mean, honestly, I was completely ready to accept the consequence that he would break up with me because that's valid. I did
Mhm.
something horrible. Um, and I couldn't take it back. And but his response immediately, this probably should have tipped me off that things were going to head down this direction. His response was to threaten to rape me. I was completely prepared for him to break up with me. I didn't expect him to stay with me, but he threatened to rape me, knowing that I had had that trauma previously.
Can I tell you something? As when you said that he pointed this out to you, that what you experienced was rape, I kid you not. I had so many flags in my head going off like he's going to use this against her later. Dang! I
You were right.
knew it. I knew it was coming back. I knew it was coming back because there's
Hmm.
no way that someone who has a manipulative, abusive mind is not going to take the most traumatic thing in your life and use it to try to hurt you when you're with them.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it was really scary because then not only did he threaten to rape me, he then proceeded to get like he was being so aggressive and scaring me so much that I quite literally banged my head off of like we were in a hotel. I was far away from home. And he obviously was my only way back. And but it was so frightening that I like got so frustrated and overwhelmed that I banged my head off of like I think it was the bathroom door. And just like because it was like so much and I couldn't process it. And then he took Tylenol PM, like the sleeping pills, and he shoved two of them in my mouth. And then he proceeded to try and force water down my mouth to make me drink them, like to take them. And I just took them because I was like, there's no point in fighting this. So I took them. And then he got mad that I took them. And then he got mad when I got sleepy and was like falling asleep because, there's this drug in my system meant to make me sleepy.
Were you out visiting him on one of his jobs out of state?
Yeah, he had taken me along with him out of state
Okay.
for that.
So when he finds out about the other people that you're just not to minimize, the emotional bond here.
Hmm.
But you're not having sex with them. You're not saying, y'all haven't said that y'all are in a relationship or anything, but you are emotionally depending on them, sharing insights into your life with them, and becoming attached to them through conversation only.
Yeah. I was just anything to prepare me for the inevitable heartbreak I thought was going to happen.
Yeah.
And then when I realized that there wasn't going to be a heartbreak, and I tried to I was trying to come up with how was I going to go about rectifying this? How was I going to go about being open and talking to him about it? But I got to it too late. And so
Hmm.
of course, he had the question of like, well, how do I know you would have told me if this person hadn't messaged me?
Let me just say something to who's ever's listening and they haven't been in complicated, unhealthy, toxic relationships. Anyone, I can't say anyone. I can't say anyone. Just be aware that if you do something and you're in a relationship with someone and you believe with your heart that this is going to break you up and it doesn't break you up, they forgive you supposedly. The first time that they bring up anything about not trusting you, anything about like y'all aren't, I'm not talking to married couples. That's not my lane. I'm not talking to people who have, if you made these vows and commitments and you really believe that this is your person, we're not talking to you. We're talking to people who are in relationships, are being abused. And if you're married and being abused, just hear me out. If they're going to continue, if the first time that they bring it up and saying, well, how can I trust you? That's your sign to walk out the door. Because one, you had a feeling that they weren't ever going to trust you. Why are we in a relationship if you don't trust me? And they use that as is honestly a trap, because what it does is I'm going to allow you the privilege to stay with me and be in my life, and I'm going to torment and torture you for how I think you've misused or wronged me the entire time that I allow you the privilege to be in my life. It's not a privilege to be in someone's life who's torturing you. It's not your privilege.
Yeah,
It's
that is
their playground.
hmm that is
Right.
exactly what happened, by the way. Um, he
Mm-hmm.
stopped trusting me
Mm-hmm.
completely, and that's fair.
Fair. It's totally fair.
And
But
I
don't hold
tried.
on to me.
Yeah. And I did try because he was willing to work with me. I did try to rebuild trust with
Hmm.
him. I tried to go out and make friendships and whatnot, which,
Hmm.
of course, he became very sensitive to because of what had happened. And so things only would get worse from
Yeah.
there. Um, because it really was like, you are now privileged to be with
Hmm.
me, and I'm going to torment you.
Hmm.
And I would later bring it up. I would later bring up all the time, like, if you don't trust me, how do you expect that this is going to work? We have no foundation. Because it had been, years by that point that I was
Hmm.
bringing it up. And, I thought by then he would at least have gained some trust in me, especially because
No.
I isolated myself completely. And
Mm-mm. They
there
don't.
was no, he didn't want to give me trust.
They don't. They have no intention of trusting you. It's just a point of controlling you. Because if I walk away, if I do you wrong and I walk away, what does that leave you with? You don't have anyone to control.
Hmm.
And from the jump, the I get that in relationships, when you're immature, you say things on purpose to hurt the other person because you're hurting.
Hmm.
However, there's a clear line and you know when you're crossing it.
Oh yeah.
And for you to threaten me with something that essentially led me into the psych ward, because if we backtrack it, that was the seed that was planted. You told me I was raped. I didn't realize I was raped. Now I'm depressed. Now I have Like, I can't think straight. I don't know how to function. Now you're mad at me because I'm depressed about what you told me that I didn't realize was happening. And you don't know how to manage me and handle me and help me through this. So you're pissed off that I'm trying to figure out how to deal with this. And then it gets to the point where I'm trying to leave the world. If I can't leave the world, I'm leaving your house. And then 4 days later, like the whole time, the 4 days I'm gone, you're messaging me.
Hmm.
Like there's nothing sexy about toxic relationships or toxic behavior. Even when you're the person who has done something, like in this case, in this conversation, you are the person who didn't know how to manage in a healthy way the information that you found out that, oh, that wasn't consensual. I wasn't crazy. My feelings are valid for how I felt in that moment. I just didn't realize until someone else told me why my feelings are valid. Then you don't know how to handle the depression and you try to kill yourself. Even though that was you and you decided to take yourself into a psych ward, sign yourself in to try to get help. I, as a person who loves and respects myself, should not continue to pursue you if I am truly healthy in my own space. I can
Yeah.
love you from a distance. I can wish you well. I can support you. But if I see your brokenness and I still want you in that brokenness and we're not married and we're just knowing each other, that's a sign. Like, we think that, oh my gosh, he loved me back to life. Oh my gosh, he accepted me and all of my flaws and all of my brokenness. No, if this is like the beginning of the relationship, no one should be accepting that, he or she,
Yeah.
because you should not sign yourself up for that war. Why
Yeah.
are we doing that to ourselves unless you're not where you need to be? And so no one should feel like when he threatened to rape you. Is this before the pills incident?
The what?
The pills, when he forced the pills down your throat.
Yeah, that was right before he forced the pills down my throat.
That was before the trip.
We were already out at the hotel, and so I was already away from family, had no way to get back. Scared, terrified because, well, it's one thing to, I obviously did wrong, and I expected an appropriate punishment, which in consequence, which would be he breaks up with me, and um instead he threatens me with rape. That's way out of the realm of what a normal response is to a situation
Correct.
like that. And so then he shoved pills down my throat, and that was scary too, because you just threatened to rape me and now you've put sleeping pills in my mouth.
And I have no idea what's going to happen when I can't fight the sleep anymore.
All that happened was he got pissed at me for getting tired. I'm
Hmm.
not that deep of a sleeper, so I feel like I would have woken up if anything
Yeah.
started to happen. But I mean, I honestly will never know for sure,
Right. How long were y'all on that trip after that initial night, like, or after that night?
I think we headed back a day or so after. Like we were approaching the end of being out there anyways.
Hmm.
And in that like day of time that we had after the initial, confrontation about it, um, we spoke about, staying together and working on things and whatnot. So I was like, okay, I need to get healthier. I need to do better.
Yeah.
So I started off with trying to make friends so I wouldn't be as dependent on him, for like, the emotional support and
Hmm.
whatnot. I was trying to make friends so that if him and I were to get to a point where things might break off, I wanted to feel safe in knowing that I had a community instead of feeling like
Hmm.
I needed to jump into another relationship.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, by that point, he was it was already too late. The minute that it was that point that set off the next 4 years of abuse that I would deal with.
So this is still year one.
Yeah, this isn't even a year yet.
Dang. You know what? Something that I have to touch on that you said that someone will miss is that they have a fixation on you fixing your problems and completely omitting the problems that they have.
Yeah, that is exactly what would end up happening, and it would be more and more obvious as the years went by that I was expected to jump when he said jump, but he didn't have to do a damn thing.
Because there's nothing wrong with him. There's nothing
No,
that needs to be fixed.
he legitimately believed that everything that he did and said and whatnot was fine, or
Hmm.
he was completely aware of the fact that what he was doing was not fine and he
Hmm.
didn't care.
Hmm. Those two. Yep. Both of them. Both of them take place. So y'all come back and you're in a relationship with him for 4 years. And
Yes.
every like things just progressively get worse. So take us down that timeline. Like you're afraid that you're going to lose, like you're going to break up and you lose this relationship. The relationship ends actually, and then 4 days later you're back together. Do you move back in with him?
No, I
Okay.
proceeded to live with my mom for a while.
Okay.
Even after the cheating incident and whatnot happened, I
Mhm.
lived with my mom, and then I would proceed to live with him again
Okay.
later on.
Yeah. But in this time you don't. You go out with him every now and then when he takes a work job out of town so y'all can spend more time together.
Yeah.
You're out of town one weekend and he threatens to rape you. He forces sleeping pills down your throat. You come back. Imagine the whole ride is terrifying because it's just everything that happened is expected to be forgotten, and all you're doing is playing it over and over in your head in silence and pretending like everything's okay when it's not. So
Yeah.
you get back. How do y'all progress in y'all's relationship and continue to grow for 4 more years?
I don't know if growing is the word that I would use. Well, we ended up coming back, and I felt this desire to do better.
Mhm.
And with that, I thought, I need to make new friends. I need to get myself some friends and a community. Um, Unfortunately, he would find every reason as to like he would find reasons to f that up, and then it was expected of me that I would not hang out with the rule was men, like I was not allowed to hang out with men, but it was very clear to me from how he acted and behaved that that extended to women. Um
Hmm.
and also his complete lack of trust in me, it just got like worse and worse. And
Hmm.
this is how I ended up actually not going to trade school or starting work again, because what ended up happening was um, he is a very act first, think later kind of guy.
Hmm.
And so what he told me was that don't act suspicious in college and we won't have any problems. But what counted as suspicious to him sometimes was nothing. Like it didn't have to be much of anything. It could be just simply that he saw something, even if there was nothing there. And so with that, I decided that it would be best if I avoided college and jobs altogether, because it was very clear that if he thought something suspicious was going to happen, um, or if he suspected me of anything, that there would be more emotional backlash and I would go through emotional and mental abuse. And it was clear that maybe he would even break up with me. And I valued my relationship with him so much that I didn't want that to happen.
Let me just say this again, no judgment for you because I stayed in a relationship. I stayed in that relationship out of fear of not being in the relationship before things got really, really bad. There were multiple times I could have left, but all I was thinking about was, if I leave, then who's going to help him do this? Who's going to? It was just a lot of stupid thoughts. And I say that to say this: when you have those stupid thoughts, like, stop putting a relationship that's most likely going to end anyways once you wake up to it. We have to stop putting relationships above our future. For you to feel like you made the decision to not go to college or get a job because you were afraid, based off of his previous actions, that all it was going to do is going to cause more tension in the relationship.
Yeah.
Of course, that's a sign to get out, but that's also a sign that he doesn't want you to grow.
Yeah.
Like, they use a lot of different tactics to keep you dependent or keep you feeling, keep you from growing or reaching your full potential.
Yeah.
And if I can just keep throwing enough rocks in this pond, eventually there's going to be more rocks than water.
Right.
And what he was doing, what even if he did, who knows if he actually even cared about those relationships? Who knows if he actually even cared about the guys? But what he could have and did know was that if I raise this as a concern and I keep doing it, she's not gonna, like, I'm gonna get her to do what I want her to do, which is, I don't want her to go to school. Because if you do go to school, then you're not emotionally dependent on him. Like, you're starting to branch off, which is a problem for him. But he
Yes.
wants you to feel like, be he wants you to feel like it's your problem because you are dependent on him, but he doesn't want you to not be dependent on him. He had the
Yeah.
perfect setup already because you were living with him, you would travel out of town with him, but then when you start talking about advancing your life, now I got to start planting weeds in this garden.
Yeah.
Just the manipulation, like, people, I truly don't think, and I was one of them, until you're in it, or unless you're a psychologist, you don't understand the complexity of the level of manipulation that they have. Like, it is
It
a
runs deep.
serious game,
Hmm.
and you don't know the rules.
No, no. And even if they tell you the rules, they'll change them.
They'll change them because telling you the rules was actually part of their rules, and you don't know it.
Hmm.
That's so. Ugh. I hate that was a decision. I understand it. I
Hmm.
just hate that people are such masters of manipulation that they can really convince people that they're making decisions on their own when really they've led you to this decision. Like, it's like an interrogation room. I'm going to lead you to the answer that I want you to leave. Aren't you ready to get out of here? Just say this. Just say this. And that's what they're
Hmm.
doing. Like, I'm leading you to make this decision, but I'm making you believe that you're making the decision on your own.
Yes, it's a big thing for them to teach you to sweep things under the rug or say what needs to be said so that things don't keep escalating. So you learn to just sweep things under the rug. You learn to just
Mhm.
say what they want to hear and whatnot because it's survival at
Yeah,
this
it's
point. Your
survival.
body is living in survival mode because the
Uh-huh.
verbal and mental abuse have these same effects on the body as physical
Hmm.
abuse. It has the same effect on your brain.
Hmm.
It quite literally actually causes damage, like shrinking, like parts of your brain will shrink, other parts will enlarge, and you will live with long-term damage from it.
This is insane. So you decide not to go to college, you decide not to work
Yeah.
because you're trying to avoid Because this is your way of walking on eggshells in this relationship. Like, if I can just minimize the amount of opportunity for there to be conflict, then maybe there won't be conflict.
Yeah.
And what you don't realize in the midst of it is it doesn't matter how many fires you put out, they're going to keep setting them somewhere. They're going to set them somewhere
Hmm.
else. So you don't get a job, you don't go to school. So essentially, you're living off of him at this point. You're living with him, and the only way that you're living is by whatever he provides.
Essentially, yeah. So I stayed with my mom for a while, and then he ended up getting a house that was actually near where my mom lived. And so I moved again. I moved in with him.
Mhm.
And oh gosh, what was I saying? I lost my train of thought.
He gets a
Um,
house, essentially where your mom lived. You move in with him, and it sounds like you were heading towards what was happening as to you made the decision not to work and do anything, but to live with
yes.
him and be provided for by him.
Yes, yes. I did
To
that
that.
and I stayed pretty much completely isolated. I
Hmm.
talked to people online because I mean, that was the best I was going to
Hmm.
get, but I didn't talk to people otherwise. I stayed
Yep.
inside the house. I There
Yep.
was only one friend that I was allowed to visit from time to time, and eventually that kind of fell off. Um, and he had me get on SNAP benefits and whatnot to help support, with food and everything. Um, but I was pretty much just living based off of like what was provided to me. I was a guest in his home,
Absolutely.
even though I
Absolutely.
lived there with him and by that point was engaged to him actually.
Wow. It's funny that you said you had one friend that you were allowed to visit from time to time. I did too. Just the one, because she wasn't I see that it's because he didn't see her as a threat
Threat.
to helping me understand what was really happening.
Yeah.
Or it was either that or something that I didn't know. Maybe it was just to make it seem like I want to dangle just enough carrot in front of you so that you think that you're not completely being isolated from everyone, even though you are.
Yeah.
As soon as you start realizing that you can't hang out with the people that you were hanging out with before you met this person, you need to run. You need to not be with that person.
Yeah.
Unless the people you were hanging out with were really, really bad. But if this is family and people you call family and friends and people you call friends that are like family, who know you, who love you, who have not done anything to you to give you any kind of inclination that they don't have your best interest at heart, there's no reason you should ever feel like you don't have the freedom to go see them when you want to or talk to them when you want to. And
Yeah.
if that's being taken away, that's a sign that this person is starting the process of isolating you and getting you to a point where once you become isolated, you don't feel safe to reach out to anyone.
He did try to get me to drop my mom, actually, my mom and my family a few times. There were issues because they did not like each other. My
Of
family did not
course.
like him, and there were some things that I think they picked up on before I was even aware. I guess he gave them a bad
Yep.
feeling. And so they started disliking him. The way that they did it was unfair because he hadn't done anything by that point, but they just already started projecting this idea about him onto him, which would eventually turn out to be right. And so they would be more like increasingly upset about the situation that I was in, and they would
Mm-hmm.
tell me that I needed to get away from it and whatnot. And he
Mm-hmm.
would then tell me, "You need to drop them." But I never felt safe dropping them because of how unstable things were with him and I. I
Right.
was like, if you break up with me, I won't have anywhere to go. So
Anywhere.
I can't drop my family because I need them on the like if you break up with me, I
Mm-hmm.
need to have a place to go back to.
Yes. And they don't want you to have that.
No.
I do want to say something. I don't want to say that it's correcting you, but it's coming from a different perspective. Saying that it wasn't fair how they treated him from the beginning before he had done anything. It is so important because you said at the very beginning, your mom was a good person. Your grandparents were good people. Like you knew that your mom had your best interest at heart. And I get it. A lot of times we can project things out of our own experiences onto other people. However, you also saw in the beginning, in the first couple of months, there were flags and signs from him that was like something just isn't right, you know?
Hmm.
We get really defensive when we find ourselves in a relationship with someone we think loves us, or just the idea of the fact that this could be something for like our forever person. We get really defensive when our family and friends don't receive them the way we did.
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
speaking from experience. But also from experience, I'm seeing that a lot of times because we have chosen to block out or ignore the flags that were present, even though they weren't big, they didn't have to be big red flags, but they were flags there the whole time. We've chosen to block those out because we like the idea of the good feeling that we get in the good moments that we have. That we Since we don't see those, we don't realize that other people can see them
Yeah.
or feel them. And I'm saying this for somebody who's not been there yet or is there now. If your family is not on board with somebody that you just met, well, it doesn't even matter. It honestly doesn't matter. If you believe that your family has your best interest at heart, let's make that the most clear thing, because there are families who are manipulative, and they're just as nasty as people who aren't family to you, and they don't want you to be happy and they don't want you to be successful. We're not talking about those people. We're strictly talking to the people who have family and friends who beyond a shadow of a doubt that there's no jealousy there. They want what's best for you. They want you to be happy, but they want what's best for you. If those people start speaking up, even if you haven't seen what they feel or they tell you that the reason they don't like, there's a reason they feel that.
Hmm.
It's it is the energy that they feel that we're blocking. We're choosing to block because we want this joy, and we're ignoring and we're blocking that negative energy. So it might not have felt fair in the moment because you didn't see what was happening in the moment, but it very much was fair for them to express their dislike with you about him and saying something's not right about him because they are unfiltered.
Yeah.
And when we're in that fresh phase, we have put up filters that we don't know, and we're sifting through. Instead of sifting through trying to find the bad, we're sifting through trying to find the good. And it shouldn't be
Yeah.
that way. Like we should start teaching our children, like when you're entertaining friendships and relationships, and even relationships with your family. I'm not saying look for the evil in people, but have a sifter so that you're not omitting it and saying and only looking for the good. Like, don't sit here and highlight all the good. And then I've done this in past relationships too. Like, I'll make a list,
Yep.
write your list of all the good and all the bad. The good's always going to outweigh the bad because you're going to sit here and keep trying to pick for good and pick for good and pick for good when you have plenty of evidence on this bad side. That's like, why are you staying with this? Like, you deserve better than what's
Hmm.
ever on this bad side. If there's 15 things on the bad side and 18 things on the good, why are we still here?
I
Why are we here?
remember why I stayed in those instances. Actually, I could list so many more cons than I could pros.
Mm,
Even despite trying to pick like the pros more. There was a lot more cons. And
mhm,
I remember though what happened to me over time was I made excuses for everything
Yes.
that was happening to me. I was like,
Yes.
oh, well, I did this, or well, I did that. Like I made excuses even though nothing justified how I was treated.
Correct. And they want you to excuse their behavior and take responsibility for their actions.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly it. They want you to think that it's on you.
Hmm.
So they don't have to take accountability.
Yes, they don't want to have to take, they don't want accountability, they don't want responsibility, they don't want anything to deal with facing the type of person that they really are.
Hmm.
They don't want that. So you stay, so you move in with him in a house now, and you're not fully dependent on him, but you're dependent on him. And then
Yes.
he's like, hey, you contribute by, I don't want you to go out there so you can start making your own money, because that'll be way too much. Because now you could be setting some aside and I don't know when you're going to leave me. But I do want you to get this free government assistance so that we can live and you contribute that way.
Hmm.
So he gives you permission to do that, and he gives you permission to have one friend. And like, are you at this point in your mind and in your body where you're like, this is so exhausting, why am I here, and you're afraid to leave? Or are you still at the phase of excusing his behavior and just wanting it to work?
I was still in the spot of just excusing his behavior and wanting it to work, but I knew I was being treated poorly.
Hmm.
I knew I was being abused in some capacity, despite the fact that it would take me forever to finally like put it together
Yeah,
and be like, that was domestic abuse, that was
yeah,
domestic violence. Um, but I was striving to change all these things about me because
yeah.
I thought I was the problem. I thought I was the one that needed
Hmm.
to fix all these things. But this is where things this was the lowest point I would say at first because this was when things got really really bad between him and I as I lived with him. He started with devaluing me, calling me, annoying. He called me all of that. Like, I can't deal with all of that. He would tell me things like, why can't you let things be? When I brought up things that hurt me or things that I, wanted to discuss, maybe find common ground on, or things that I had problems with, he did not like that. He called me drama. He called me crazy bitch, actually, quite a couple of times. Um, he would cause fights using name calling in order to discourage me holding him accountable or having to work on any of his issues. Um, he started devaluing me through jokes too. He started making jokes that nobody would want me if they knew all these problems that I had, as well as making jokes that from then on, anytime there was a potential that I was trying to make a friend and it was in his bounds of reason, anytime that I was talking to anybody, it was you talking to your new boyfriend, you talking to your new girlfriend, and then there was also he would proceed to make very explicit jokes regarding me and these people. He did that even about his brother because we were living with his brother. His brother lived in the downstairs part of the house. We lived in the upstairs part of the house because it was a big house. And he would make jokes about me sleeping with his brother. I was so uncomfortable. It was awful. I asked him to stop making those comments because it like I didn't want him to just be like making these jokes and essentially devaluing me to be a slut.
Hmm.
And but it did not stop. He made he would persist to make sexual comments about me or to me to make me uncomfortable.
I wonder what it is in their brain that, like, that's their overall go-to. And I
I
know
could never understand it.
so you said he lived with his brother and his dad in the beginning. Where's his mom?
His mom and dad are divorced, so his mom lived the whole way back in his hometown, which was across the across the map. So
How is their relationship?
their relationship was strained, very strained, because as and now this is what I learned from being in the family and being told things by the family. His dad, who also shows very narcissistic behaviors, um, was cheating on his mom, and so his mom left him, and then he proceeded to, when he finally got his hands on, he proceeded to make up a whole story about how his mom was cheating and his mom didn't want them to see him, despite the fact that he wasn't making any of the calls that he would then tell him that he was making. And so he believed his dad. He believed that his dad, in the fact that, like, oh, his mom was the problem.
Yeah. Yeah. I it's again, as I was saying earlier, like the generational and the learned behavior, but it's it's I find it hard for a young man or a boy or anyone who doesn't respect their mom to respect another woman.
Yeah, that's a bit of a trend that I always heard about that, but I again would constantly excuse and be like, well,
Hmm.
no, he's got a rough relationship with his mom for a reason, and I would excuse
Hmm.
that fact because that is a red flag that people raise a lot of the time.
Yes.
People talk about if they don't have a good relationship with their mother, that's not a good sign. That's a red flag.
It's usually not a good sign. I mean, of course, there's the few times when the mom is just really just not a good example of what a woman or a mother should be. But even still, the Bible still tells us to honor your father and mother. And I understand how hard that can be when it's not someone that you know how to respect. Like, I don't know, and I'm just going to trust God on this one. I don't know how I'm going to tell my kids to respect their father. I don't respect their father anymore.
Hmm.
You know, my respect for him has been fully lost. However, the Bible says that they're supposed to honor them. And I'm like, can you honor them and not respect them at the same? Like, I don't know,
Yeah.
because if he hasn't, you're not in there. I don't know. I don't know how I'm going to do that. But I'm going to try to teach them that people make mistakes. I'm going to try to teach them that the when the time comes and they're old enough to comprehend really what's happening, a lot of times people make bad decisions because of the bad experiences that they've had. And when people don't get the help that they need from their past, it basically vomits over into their future and
Yes.
destroys their future.
Yes.
And that's what happened here.
Hmm. I would
So,
say that that's definitely a part of why things ended up the way they did.
yeah.
Um, um,
So, so he doesn't have a good relationship with his mom. And now he's doing his best to make you feel less than as much as possible.
yeah, he quite literally, I told him he was treating me subhuman. This would be down the line in the future, but I said, "You're treating me subhuman." And he said, "Maybe that's because you are."
It always comes out.
Hmm. It
It
does. It
always comes
really
out.
does.
Girl.
And he began to essentially, he would violate all of my boundaries, and this would become the start of normalizing that behavior. Um, and it was very disrespectful and humiliating. I'm going to tell you this, and it's going to sound like he's from high school because of it. He would dangle spit over my face. He would pin me down and dangle spit over my face, and then he would accidentally drop it on me. I don't believe it was accidental. He chased me with boogers. he would pin me down just simply for his own entertainment, and obviously humiliated me for his own entertainment,
Yeah.
and amusement. He
Yeah.
would barge into the bathroom when I was using it, despite me repeatedly communicating that I
Just
didn't like
please
it.
don't. Mm-hmm.
There was times where he would poke me in the sides or tickle me even as I was like trying to fall asleep, and then he would be like, "Oh, I don't know why I did that." He would subject me to farts, like trying to pin me under the covers after he farted, stuff like that. He just thought it was really funny to make me deal with something disgusting.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then the last one is more or less like very serious, because I would often get hurt during these encounters where he was violating my boundaries, because I would try to fight back and then accidents would happen and one of us is hurt, usually me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He would chase me with knives. He chased me with knives, and that was terrifying because I thought I was going to get stabbed one day. Like, I thought legitimately he was going to accidentally stab me because of this consistent boundary violation. And that's not even counting the time that he pointed his gun at my head. Unloaded, but you never do that. That is like basic gun 101.
How do you know it wasn't loaded?
Um, I mean, it honestly it could have been, because you're supposed to treat every gun like it's loaded. But as far as I was concerned, the magazine was out
There's always a possibility that there's one in the
in the
chamber.
chamber. Yeah. So it was really scary, like the boundary violation. He would stick his fingers up my nose as well. Like, he would physically restrain me and stick his fingers up my nose, despite me like it got to the point where I was yelling and screaming at him because there was so much boundary violation. And this would happen over the course of the next 4 years that I was with him. I would yell and I would scream and I would tell him, if you respect me, you wouldn't do this. If you cared about me, you wouldn't do this. Sometimes I would react like with volatile, like I'd be volatile because it was constant, like pushing me to the edge until I broke, and then
Mm-hmm.
reactive abuse would happen.
Yes.
Um, but it just it was constant. No matter what I said, no matter what I did, no matter how much I communicated to him that it harmed me to be treated like that,
Mm-hmm.
he continued to do it, and it would escalate to worse things, like he would grab my breast after arguments, and I would tell him to stop, and I told him it was sexual assault because I said no. And he would just kind of scoff and continue to use his strength to touch me, even
Mm-hmm.
though I did not want to be touched because of the fights that we were having. Um, he would often try to use sex mid-argument just to avoid being held accountable, or like avoid having to fix the issue. And it got to the point where it was so confusing and upsetting that I would burst into tears and I would yell at him, being like, "Why are you trying to do this when I'm clearly hurt by your actions? I'm clearly, like, I'm not in the headspace to be doing this. Like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
hurt right now." He would end up pressuring me for sexual acts that he knew that I had trauma with or that I didn't want to do, for pictures that I was not comfortable with sending. And he would also walk up to me and shove his genitals in my face just whenever. It's a long
It
list, and I'm sure I'm not even like remembering everything for that matter as well.
Most of this is not just high school, but this is elementary, middle. Like,
Hmm.
a lot of this stuff is really immature.
Yes,
However, on TV is comical. In this instance, it's methodical. Because if anyone knows that you don't like something and you've expressed it and they keep doing it, it is because they don't respect you. It is because they don't love you. It is because they don't care about you. It doesn't matter how many times they say they do love you. They don't.
a loving
And
partner would not do that.
they would not. Like, there's no reason for you to pin me down if we're not playing together. There's
Correct.
no reason for you to have these accidents of you, like this stuff wouldn't happen if you wouldn't start it in the first place.
Correct.
And so it's just that those instances are almost more dangerous in a sense mentally and emotionally because they can be laughed off as something, kid-like and foolish. Like
Yes.
in a different situation with different people in different ages, yes, it can be funny that somebody's chasing somebody. Like that's 7-year-old stuff. I'm chasing you with my boogers. However, you're physically exhausted because of the constant emotional and mental abuse that's happening from you saying, I don't like when you do this, and then he continues to do it.
Yeah, it's one thing when both parties are having fun, but
Mm-hmm.
when one party is having fun and the other is in distress,
At the
it's just
expense of someone
abuse.
else.
And he would act like I was too sensitive
Mm-hmm.
because I did not like these things.
Yeah.
And essentially, what he was doing was he was teaching me that I did not have autonomy.
Mm-hmm.
I had no place to say or to do anything.
Yeah.
He could do whatever he wanted to me and treat me however he wanted. And
Mm-hmm.
I feel he felt emboldened to do so as well because he thought that I would not leave. It actually,
Mm-hmm.
he slipped up at one point and he quite literally said, he said to me, we had fought and he wanted me over. And I told him, I don't want to come over just because he'd think that things are okay. And he would think that like he can keep treating me like that, and that there will never be any consequences to that behavior. And he replied with, that's not always what I think.
Mm-hmm.
Not always.
Right. But he knew. He knew you were in already enough that he could get away with anything.
We were trauma bonded by that point because he was the person that brought me all that hurt and all that pain was the same person that at the end of the day comforted me because he
Yep.
was all I had to comfort me.
Yep. Yep. You should never in your relationship feel threatened in any form or fashion.
No,
At no point. It's never funny to chase anyone with knives. It's never funny to point a gun. I don't care if the magazine's not in the clip. It's never funny to do that for
it
any
was
reason.
it was really scary because all I could think in those moments was like trigger goes off and like all I could think about was the unimaginable pain,
Hmm.
of
Hmm.
accidentally being shot.
Yep. Yep. And you went through that for 4 years.
Yes, he even at one point, this was probably about like a year or two in, at this point, and this was around a time where I was still living with him and whatnot. We broke up again because, there was always something. I could never do anything right. I
Hmm.
tried to jump when he said jump, every time, but he never had to jump for me. He
Right.
pretty much waved it off as like, you don't have a say in anything because you fucked up in the past, so you're not allowed to have boundaries, or you're not allowed to be suspicious of me. You're not allowed to have like
Mm.
anything. You can't have that. And we had broken up, and I was at my mom's place and I was texting him and I was begging him, let me come back, let me come back.
Mm.
And he quite literally told me, he was like, okay, you have to perform anal with me to come back, which he knew that I had trauma with as well. And I uncomfortably agreed. And so I went over to his place. And thank God that didn't happen, but he did proceed to have sex with me. Obviously, that's not sex. It was coercive. I was told the relationship was going to end if I didn't do it. So I felt like I had no choice. So he did just straight up rape me at that point. Um, and I threw up afterwards. And I told him like I never want to do that again, ever. Because it was very clear that I was confused, I was in distress, I was it was one of those situations again where it was obvious I was not having fun, that I was scared and upset. And it made me upset that he could even do that to me, knowing that I was scared and upset.
My heart hurts so much for the little girl in you who thought she had to do that to be with someone.
And I wouldn't consider it rape for years. It would take me a while to be like, wow, yeah, that was like he legitimately did.
If anyone if anyone gives you an ultimatum for your coming back into their life or being in their life, you don't want to be in their life. Like
Yeah.
no one tells you you can come back or we can be together if you do this. Even if I'm going to say this and it might come back to bite me. But even if you're a drug addict and someone says if you get clean, I'll be with you. You
Hmm.
shouldn't be with that person. And that person shouldn't want to be with you. Like
Yeah.
you should see that something is amiss here. And I shouldn't have to change anything about. Granted, it would be for your best interest.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, in that situation, if you're not changing for you, you're most likely going to relapse anyways.
Yes. Yes. They have to want to change. You can't make somebody change. So they have to be willing to work with you on that. Um, so
But for no
it,
reason to me,
yeah.
should you be hit with a if you do this, then you can be in my life or I'll accept you.
Yeah, especially not a sexual demand of all things
Anything
as well.
sexual. Anything sexual should not be. Because now not only do you have to do something that wasn't a mutual decision from the jump, now you're creating a new trauma for yourself.
Yeah.
Because whatever you do and however you do it, whenever that repeats again, you're going to think about the time that you had to do it to be accepted.
Yeah. Sex between me and him would become very strained from that point forward. I remember after that happened and I like confronted him about it. I was like, I don't know how you even managed to do that to me, knowing that I was in that much distress. That's not okay. And that bothers me. He diverted the conversation by being like, it's okay, we're not going to have sex anymore anyways. Obviously, that didn't last because that wasn't really like the truth.
Hmm.
Um, but I would feel scared oftentimes when we were sleeping together. And I remember I didn't want him to look at me when we were sleeping together because I was afraid of how he was objectifying me.
Mm.
Like I wanted the lights off. I wanted to be
Hmm.
shielded because I was scared of being objectified. I was scared of that perception of me, especially because he treated me like I didn't have autonomy majority of the time. So
Yeah.
it was scary.
Yeah. So what was it, Bella? I mean, because you were there for what, 4 to 5 years. What was it where you were like, I just can't do this anymore? How did you get there?
There were a couple different moments that led up to that. It started, I think, back in, I want to say it was like the August of 2024, um, where it kind of started to happen, um, where I was like starting to see things as they were. And
Hmm.
I was still putting my best foot forward into trying to make it work with him. But by that point, actually, I was not living with him anymore again. I was going to his house on the weekends and going with him to work on occasion.
Hmm.
Um, but we had had a fight that landed in me, going back to stay with my mom, which was honestly for the best because that space gave me more of a safe spot, a safe space to actually decompress from the events and see them as they were.
Yeah.
And although I still would cling on to it heavy for a while, there was back in 2024, the August of 2024, what happened was I found out that him and his best friend were um, going behind my back, and that his best friend didn't actually like me, like he claimed that he did.
Hmm.
And his best friend had even told him to cheat on me.
Hmm.
And he did not tell me that. But if it was me, if I had a friend that told me to do that and I didn't tell him and he found out, I would be in so much emotion. Like he would have mentally and emotionally abused me for weeks
Yeah.
following that.
Yeah.
But rules for thee, not for me. And so I found out that his friend told him to cheat, but apparently they got on call after he said that. So there's no evidence suggesting that he refuted that and told him, no, that's wrong.
Hmm.
And that's where it kind of started for me, was that's where my distrust started. Um, well, I didn't trust him. I mean, obviously, and I was starting to see the extent of how much I couldn't trust him. So over time, I was saying the same things over and over to him. I had become really good at being healthy and communicating, and I was fairly good at regulating my emotions, but obviously when you're being driven up a wall by somebody who is committed to misunderstanding you and committed to fighting with you, you will have moments where you just break down. And I did look crazy. I know I looked crazy. He would call me crazy and he would make me insecure about it, but I would bang my head off of things. I would get so like nervous and worked up that I would scratch myself, until sometimes I would even accidentally cut myself because I was just so overworked from all that he was putting me through. And but I was telling him the same things over and over and over and over. Like every paragraph that I sent to him, you could go back and look at the previous paragraph from the last month, and it was the same thing. Nothing was changing. And I was starting to, I didn't realize it at the time, but I was grieving before I even understood that it was over. Um, I was grieving the relationship through every time that I communicated with him, and nothing would stick. He would say that he understood, he would say that he was sorry, or he would fight with me. But nothing truly changed. So that's where it kind of started. And then I got to a point, I had friends online that were grounding me, that were telling me his potential is not the reality. What you see
Mm.
him, who you see him potentially being is not who he is right now. You're being hurt right now. And
God,
that
dog.
that helped ground me. That helped me be like, it's not about his potential. It's about who he is today. And um I would go and I would tell them, like, when things would happen, they would be like, "You're not crazy." It was so important for me to talk with my friends at this time and relay this information to them, because it would be a stepping stone, and what would help to get me out was them grounding me and making sure that I didn't like go off into fantasy la la world where I thought he would get better if I
Yep.
just did the right thing.
Yep.
And there was that, and then it was his treatment of me. Like what it eventually pushed me away to the point where I started to recenter myself in my life,
Hmm.
because he was breaking up with me every other week, every other day.
Hmm.
And so I was like, I can't keep centering this person in my life. So I started to recenter myself. I started to do things for myself again. I started to set boundaries for myself. Like if he called me and started making inappropriate comments, I'd be like, okay, I gotta go.
Hmm.
I won't
Hmm.
talk to you if you talk to me like that. I gotta go.
Yeah.
Um, and he was losing control,
Yep.
obviously, and he was getting more and more frustrated with it. And I knew there was another breakup on the horizon. Um, and so I told myself, when it happens, we let it go. We don't
Yeah.
fight back this time. We just let it go. And as predicted, it did come. He did like end up telling me like I'm breaking up with you because I don't trust you and etc, you know. And I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry you feel that way." And then there was silence on the phone, and then he hung up, and it was hard at first. I was
Yeah.
fighting every fiber of my body that was telling me you need to make this right, you know, because that was the cycle. The
Yeah.
cycle was he would break up with me, I would try to make it right, and then we would, you know, talk again, and I would
Hmm.
convince him to come back to me just as long as I, you know, did X, Y, or Z to fix things, you know. And it was predictable by that point, you know, and it had happened so many times that it completely lost meaning to me. Hell, in October of that year, I had even called him out and I told him, I know this is bullshit. You're
Hmm.
never serious. When you tell me you're done with me, you're never serious. Um, And so I finally got to a point where I dropped it and I didn't text him, I didn't call him. I actually had been out invited out that night to a little like Wii party, if you know
Hmm.
the Wii console, like
Hmm.
everybody was in this friend group at a college. They were going to be playing Wii games and whatnot, and I was invited out there. And I decided to go. I decided that instead of fighting to try and keep this relationship with him, that I was going to put myself first again, and I was
Hmm.
going to go enjoy myself, and I wasn't going to let him ruin my night. And so
Yeah.
I went, and I had the most fun I had ever had in the past 4.5 years. And
Hmm.
I was my friends, I've told them this now, but they didn't know it before, but they ended up saving my life that night
Hmm.
because they showed me care and compassion and friendship. And I was a stranger. I was a stranger, and I was at this point so used to being told that I was unlovable and I was crazy and I nobody would want me or like me and that everybody hated me.
Yeah.
And so these people treated me like part of the group already, and we clicked so instantly, and it was such a fun night. I didn't think about him again, not until
Mm.
the next day when he started blowing up my phone
Yeah.
with calls.
Yeah.
And obviously I ignored those calls. I only picked up actually when I finally went home, which was really funnily enough, I ended up staying the night, and then I went back home the next day, and he called me and proceeded to try and fight with me about things. He asked me for like, hey, can you get a list of your things that are at my house so that I can bring them back to you? And I said, yeah, sure. Then we hung up. Then he called me back, and he started it with, I just think it's funny that you say you care and then you do X, Y, and Z. And I was done. I finally told him, you may not, like, he would say things and I would be like, maybe that's your reality, but that's not my reality. I just kept refuting things that he was saying with, I pointed out the hypocrisy, the inconsistencies, the
Yeah.
lies, you know. And then anytime that he had something to say to me that was like, well, you did this and you did that, I would tell him like, maybe that's your reality, but that's not mine. Or he would deny being to me. He would deny treating me the way he did, and I would be like, well, maybe that's not how you perceived what happened between
Yeah.
us, but that's my reality. And I just let him have his fantasy world where
Yeah.
we both treated each other badly, even though I personally don't think that that applies beyond when one person has made all the changes and you're still not changing. You're still
Hmm.
treating them like. And then he also admitted on that phone call that he treated me like that on purpose because of the cheating incident that took place 4.5 years ago.
Yeah.
And then he doubled down on it a few months later. He had still been like texting me intermittently and whatnot. And
Hmm.
he admitted when he finally found out that I was like, when he finally like accepted that I was done, you know, I was moving on. He sent me a text and he told me he took his anger out on me and treated me the way he did as a crutch. So he knew what he was doing.
Of course.
And I remember he had texted me for months, like following that breakup. And he he told me things like he tried to commit suicide, he nearly crashed his car, or he did crash his car. Um,
Mhm.
he often told me throughout the relationship that I made him want to commit suicide.
Mm.
Um, and and then he told me he was going to a psych ward, which I honestly don't believe, but I just ended up relaying all of this information to his parents because I didn't want involved anymore. This was no longer
Yeah.
my problem. And
Yeah.
so I told his parents about that. And what they did was they talked to him and he got mad at me. He sent me a
Hmm.
text about it and he was like, I'd appreciate if you reached out to me if you care. And
Hmm.
some other stuff. And it was just like, it flew right over his head that the whole reason I wasn't contacting him was because I was done.
Right. He's just baiting you. It didn't fly over
Yes.
his head, but he kept throwing out baits. Like even the initial call where he's like, "Hey, just make me a list of all your things." It wasn't to actually pack up your things. It was bait. All of it
He
is
wanted to call
all
and
bait.
fight. Yeah. Yeah.
He
That's
wanted to
that's
cause a
exactly what it
fight.
was.
He wanted the cycle to continue. He wanted
Yep.
you to, because he thought he didn't think it was actually over,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
he thought
He
that
never
I
did.
could drive you back home. So dang, girl.
He only gave up when and like I said, I had grieved the relationship while I was in it. And when I was out, I was out and
Hmm.
I was healthy. I was in therapy already. I started taking antidepressants and anti-anxiety meds, which really helped me and helped reconstruct me a bit. Um, I've been, healing and whatnot. I had been healing and whatnot since then. So the only reason he finally dropped like trying to contact me was when he found out that I actually started dating someone.
Hmm.
Um, because I was in a place where I was much healthier, I was much happier. I had friends, I had my family, I was handling things with my mother a lot better because there
Yeah.
wasn't that tiff between her and I anymore regarding like, things that were happening to me. Um I was able to start healing, like I said, the therapy, the antidepressants, the anti-anxiety meds, and I started a new relationship. And apparently he found out about that. And he said it was through his mother, but I'm not completely sure.
Hmm.
Um, but that's when he finally sent me like one long last message, and I sent him one long last message, and then communication completely stopped. Thank God.
Right. Right. Because that's a lot. Like people don't realize how tormenting it is to be emotionally and mentally abused and threatened.
I thought
People
I
think,
was, sorry, I was
no,
going to
you're
say,
fine.
I thought I legitimately was going to kill myself before I would get out of that relationship because the decision between staying and leaving was so paralyzing that suicide seemed better than doing
Wow.
either.
And let me just say on the record that it's not, because we allow we allow temporary situations to be handled by permanent decisions. And sometimes I've never been in a depressed state, to the extent I have been depressed, but I haven't been in a depressed state to the extent of where, like I had a conversation with a previous guest, that you just really do feel like the only escape is to escape and be gone and be done with the world. However, in this case, or in relationship cases, I I strongly urge anyone, just walk away from the relationship and give yourself grace and time to heal and grow, and you will see that even after fire, flowers can still bloom.
Yeah, absolutely. If I had done that, I wouldn't be where I am today, which is a lot happier and a lot healthier. And, I'm surrounded by all these wonderful people, my friends, my partner. I would not get to have that now.
Yeah.
That would have been a permanent solution to a situation that, I at the time, yeah, I felt completely helpless. I felt like there was no way
Yeah.
out. I never saw myself escaping, but you can.
You
I'm
can.
sure there's going to be plenty of people that are watching this that have been in that situation, you know, or are in that situation, and they're thinking to themselves that this is like the only way out, but it's
Yeah.
not. It's not. You can get out. I didn't think it was possible, but here I am.
But here you are. Bella. Ella, eh. Let me just say, you are strong. You are amazing. You're powerful. Anyone who has the intent to heal, to get better, to get help, and put forth the work. Like, the reason people don't get help is because they don't want to do the work. Like, it's easier to stay broken and jacked up and in misery than it is to do the work that's required to heal from the trauma that has been stacked up for however many
Hmm.
years you've been stacking it up, right? So I
Right.
just want to commend you on that, for deciding that your life is worth more than what you've been through, for choosing to become a better version of yourself, and to be here and to continue to allow your amazing, beautiful light shine. It has been an honor and a privilege to have this conversation with you. It has been our privilege to have, for you to open up your life, you know, and your experiences, to put yourself aside, the shame, the guilt, the embarrassment, whatever emotions that come along with all of the stuff that we've been through, because we all have it, to be willing to
Hmm.
put it aside in the hopes that your story helps someone is really, really powerful. And I just want to say
Thank you.
thank you. I want to say thank you.
Thank you
Woo!
for having me on this.
Girl, let me tell you, somebody needed to hear this one. Somebody needed to hear this one. It's not like, many of the others. It's its own unique flower, and it
Hmm.
needed to be revealed because there's going to be someone who's suffering with suicidal thoughts. There's going to be someone who's suffering with making life decisions based off of a relationship that's not even with someone who doesn't love them, and they don't know that they don't really know they don't love them yet.
Hmm.
I don't know when it's going to reach who it's going to reach and how it's going to reach them, but I truly believe that the people who need this are going to be drawn to it. God willing, it's going to attract them to you, and they're going to see that it's not worth it, you know? And even if they have made the
Hmm.
decisions and the mistakes that we all have in our own lights and in our own lives, look at how beautiful and amazing you are on the other side. Like, people really
Yeah,
like,
definitely.
in the middle of it. Again, be there, been there, done that. In the middle of it, you really believe like there's nothing better on the other side. Like, what you're in sucks,
Yeah.
but you don't believe that there's joy outside of it because you've been so conditioned to believe that
They
you don't
usually
deserve joy.
fearmonger you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember I was also fearmongered. I was told that the outside world, was going to be worse. And
Yeah.
I believed that. And I believed that anybody else that I would interact with next could do worse to me. So
Yeah.
that's another reason I stayed. Um,
Yeah.
I do want to say something for the viewers though, because I remember doing this when I was in the midst of it all. I would watch videos like this, and then I would start going through a million reasons as to why that wasn't my situation, and I would start excusing things and whatnot.
Mm.
If you are feeling that way, if you're watching this and things are resonating with you and you're still trying to excuse it, we are talking to you.
Yes.
You are in that situation. You are there with us, and I want to point that out to you because maybe that will make you, because I wish I would have heard that, and maybe that will
Yeah.
help somebody see their situation completely.
Yes. Yes. Not from your point of view, but from every point of view. It's
Hmm.
hard to see the forest for the trees, and you're standing in the midst of it. So thank you for that. Thank you for saying that. Whoever you are, this is your situation, sis,
Hmm.
bro, and you deserve so much better. And we hope
Absolutely. Nobody
that
deserves
you
to be
see
treated that
that
way.
for any reason whatsoever.
Hmm.
Sister girl, I absolutely love you. I thank you so much for your time. I thank you so much for your experience and sharing it with us. Of course, we will stay in touch.
Awesome.
You keep showing up. You keep sharing your love. You keep shining your light. And as always, to the viewers out there, in the meantime, in between time, we are gone.